There are mirrors that don't show wrinkles, they show defeats. And many men, when they look at themselves, don't see the warrior they once were. They see the ghost others convinced them they've become. Let me tell you a truth no one else will. You didn't lose your appeal. You lost the gaze that used to recognize it. You've mistaken silence for invisibility. You've let routine, disdain, or indifference erase you from the map. But you're not erased. You're asleep. In this video, I'm going to show you signs you've been missing. Proof that you're still desirable, even if the world and you yourself stopped noticing. And let me warn you, the last lesson is going to hurt, because it'll remind you of the man you were before you gave up. I'm Celia, and if you dare to listen until the end, I promise you'll never see yourself the same way again. How long has it been since you noticed who's looking at you? When was the last time you walked down the street and felt that spark, that fleeting glance that reminded you you're still alive, that you still stir something in others? Maybe you think that doesn't happen anymore, that the years have wiped away your appeal like the wind erases footprints in the sand. But let me tell you something that might sting. It's not that women have stopped seeing you, it's that you stopped looking. This is the first thing we need to talk about. Women still look at you, but you don't notice it anymore. And you don't notice because you've spent years walking with your head down, shoulders slumped, eyes dimmed. Not from physical weakness, but emotional exhaustion. Because they made you believe you're no longer worth anything. That you've got nothing left to offer. That your time has passed, and now all that's left is to sit on a bench and wait. Wait for what? For someone to hand back what you gave up yourself? Picture this. A man walks through a plaza. His hair is grey, his back straight, his clothes simple but clean. He passes by a cafe where two young women are chatting. One glances at him, then follows him with her eyes as he walks away. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't smile. She doesn't call out to him, but she watches him intently. And him, he doesn't even notice. He's so used to not being seen that he no longer allows himself to be observed. He no longer expects interest, no longer looks for signs. And that, exactly that, is what makes him more intriguing. Mature appeal doesn't need to shout. It's not measured in likes or muscles. It's felt in presence, in the way you walk, how you sit, the confidence in your voice, even in your silences. But if you don't see yourself as worthy of admiration, no one else will do it for you. The problem isn't in other people's eyes. It's in your own chosen blindness. Let me be blunt. You still spark interest, but your self-esteem has taken such a beating that you've become your own worst enemy. Every time you think, I'm not cut out for that anymore, you're cutting yourself down. Every time you say, at my age, who's going to notice me? You're erasing yourself from the map of desire, and the worst part, you believe it. Don't confuse the absence of compliments with the absence of attractiveness. Most men who still catch glances at 60 don't even realize it, because they're too busy feeling old, tired, or not good enough. And meanwhile, the women who are looking for something beyond youth, women who know how to spot a steady gaze, a firm voice, an elegant gesture, walk past them thinking, what a shame he doesn't realize what he's got. But you still have it. You've just buried it under layers of disappointment, routine, and neglect. It's time to start looking again, not to seek approval, but to reconnect with the energy that's still alive in you, because the signs are there. But if you keep walking like you're invisible, you'll end up invisible to yourself, and that would be a real tragedy. If you're struggling to see yourself clearly, imagine how hard it is for others to see what you no longer recognize. We've already said it. Your appeal hasn't disappeared. Your attention has. But there's something more subtle and more dangerous happening, and you haven't even noticed. We've arrived at the second key point of this video, and it's this. They're not ignoring you, they're evaluating you. Yes, you heard me right. At this stage of life, when you walk into a room, most people aren't ignoring you. They're silently observing you, but not with disdain, with judgment. A quiet evaluation that happens in seconds. Who is this man? Does he have presence? Is he defeated, or does he still carry strength? Is he worth listening to, respecting, approaching? And in that evaluation, many men fail, not because they lack value, but because they present themselves as if they do. Human psychology is ruthless. From the moment we're born, we're wired to size people up in seconds. We assess threat, attractiveness, authority, status, and we do it without thinking. What you transmit without speaking, without even moving, defines how you'll be treated. And if you show up as a tired man with no strength, no direction, that's exactly what people will see, not because it's who you are, but because it's what you project. Stoicism teaches that we can't control how others see us, but we can control how we present ourselves to the world. And that's crucial because a lot of older men give up. They let themselves go. They believe their moment has passed, and they start walking like they've got nothing left to offer. Like everything about them is in the past. Like the future has no room for them. But when you give up, you don't just lose your light, you give others permission to snuff it out completely. Now hear this. When a woman looks at you, she's not just seeing your body, she's seeing your story. She's looking to see if there's strength or surrender in you. She's seeing whether you're someone who stands firm or someone who needs to be held up. And every day, you choose which version of yourself walks out the door. The man who's lived, learned, and is still standing tall, or the man who's crumbled inside, even if he's still moving on the outside. People don't ignore you, they just don't find anything that makes them stop at you. And that's not because you're lacking youth, it's because you're lacking intensity. Because real appeal isn't measured in wrinkles or muscle, it's measured in presence, in emotional energy, in that silent strength that says, I'm here and I'm still me. But if you don't show up with dignity, with steadiness, with that calm only well-lived years can give, then no one will take you seriously. Because what you're projecting is defeat, and defeat has a scent. You can see it, you can feel it. So next time you walk into a meeting, a market, a cafe, don't think no one notices you. Think of it this way, everyone's reading you, and you get to decide whether what they see is a man who still commands respect, or one who doesn't even respect himself, because if you don't rise, no one will lift you. And if you don't present yourself as someone worth noticing, listening to, and following, you'll just fade into the background like another shadow in the crowd. By now, you've understood that you're not being ignored, you're being evaluated. And you're losing that evaluation because you're presenting yourself as someone who has nothing left to offer. But there's something deeper we need to face. When someone approaches you, when they speak to you, ask you a question, start a conversation, what do you think? Do you assume they're doing it out of politeness? Out of pity? Out of obligation? If so, you're sabotaging yourself. We've reached the third key point in this video, and this is where things start to shift, because you need to understand something. If someone talks to you, it's not out of courtesy, it's because they sense something valuable. The problem is, you've stopped seeing that value in yourself, and when you convince yourself that you've got nothing interesting left to say, you end up speaking like you need permission to exist. Your voice weakens, your gestures falter, your eyes avoid contact, and no one connects with that. The strategy is simple but powerful. Start speaking with the certainty that your experience is a treasure. Don't talk to please. Don't try to say what you think others want to hear. Speak your truth. Speak from what you've lived, from what you've overcome, because that's what sets you apart. Young people have energy, sure, but they don't have a story. You do. And if you learn to share it with clarity, with direction, with emotional strength, what you inspire isn't pity, it's respect, admiration, genuine interest. Picture yourself at a gathering, one of those where most people are glued to their phones or recycling the same empty phrases. Suddenly, you speak up, not to impress, but to share something you've lived through, a tough decision, a lesson that changed you. You do it calmly, no shouting, no unnecessary embellishments. And what happens is almost magical. The shallow chatter stops. Everyone listens. Because when someone speaks from truth, from scars that have healed, silence naturally follows. And that That is attractiveness in its purest form. But to get there, you have to stop minimizing yourself. You have to step out of the spectator role and own your place as a man who has lived and still has a voice. You don't need to be wise or cultured or have all the answers. You just need to stop hiding behind silence. Because every time you speak from fear, you reinforce the idea that you no longer matter. But when you speak from experience, you become unforgettable. Before we move on, I want to ask you something. If this message has made you reflect so far, hit the subscribe button and give me a like. Let me know which country you're watching from. And leave me a simple affirmation in the comments. My story matters. Write it down. Make it clear that you're ready to stop staying quiet. Now that you've started to remember that your story matters, that your voice can make a difference, and that you still spark interest when you speak your truth, it's time to go deeper. Because even as you begin to reclaim that presence, that confidence that was once yours, there's a silent enemy that can undo it all without you realizing. One that pushes you to betray yourself just when you're about to lift your head. We've reached the fourth point of this video, and it's this. You're still projecting something others can't fake, but you're the one hiding it. The mistake is thinking you need to adapt. That if you change your clothes, your words, your tastes, if you play the nice guy or try to be modern, then you'll be accepted again. But that's a trap. One of the cruelest. Because in trying to fit into a world that no longer values depth or character, you end up abandoning the only thing that truly makes you attractive, your authenticity. What you naturally project, when you stop trying so hard to be liked, is something no one else can replicate. It's presence. It's pause. It's an energy shaped by years of pain, tough decisions, roads traveled. It's that air of a man who's fallen and gotten back up. Young people can't fake that, and yet you're burying it under layers of insecurity. You're dressing yourself up as someone you're not, just to be accepted by people who don't matter. And that's where the real problem lies. You're disconnecting from your own essence to chase validation in all the wrong places. You're trading steady steps for tiptoeing through other people's lives. And every time you do that, what others sense isn't charm, it's desperation. And desperation is never attractive, ever. The consequence is brutal, because when you lose what you naturally project, you become irrelevant. No one stops to look at someone who copies, someone who pretends, someone who betrays his own voice just to echo everyone else's. There's nothing more painful than becoming invisible by choice, just to be liked, just to avoid making anyone uncomfortable. Mature authenticity is like a low, steady flame, intense but quiet. It doesn't need to shout, it doesn't compete, it doesn't imitate. But when it enters a room, it's unmistakable. That flame is in you. But every time you decide to talk like everyone else, dress like everyone else, give up what you love, or fake an attitude that isn't yours, that flame dims a little more. And over time, not only do you lose it, so do the people who might have been drawn to it. Let me be blunt. What makes you most attractive now is that you have nothing left to prove. You just need to remember that. And live it, because if you don't respect it, no one else will. We've already talked about what you project, about how your presence still carries weight, even when you're the one ignoring it. But there's a mistake sabotaging everything at its root. One that many men make without even realizing, because it hides behind common phrases, learned habits, and the false idea that there's not much left to do. We've arrived at the fifth point of this video, and it's as brutal as it is necessary. Your body isn't abandoning you, you're abandoning it. I'm not saying this out of vanity or for appearances. I'm saying it because what you see in the mirror directly affects how you walk, how you speak, and how you feel inside. Your body isn't just flesh, it's your armor. And if you neglect it, who else is going to respect it? A lot of men hit 55 and fall into the defeatist mindset. Why bother exercising? I'm already old. What's the point in taking care of myself if no one's looking anyway? I'm too old for that now. But that mentality is poison, because what they're really saying is, I don't matter anymore. And it's that thought, not time, that makes you age overnight. When you let yourself go, you're not just losing muscle or mobility. You're losing presence. You're losing firmness. You're losing dignity. And that hurts. Because every extra pound, every ache you ignore, every day you spend without moving, is a silent declaration that you've thrown in the towel, that you've given up. And no, it's not about having a young man's body. That's not realistic. But it is about staying strong, staying agile, about looking in the mirror and not feeling shame or resignation. Because when you look good, you feel better. And when you feel better, others notice. It's that simple. Want to know why some older men still turn heads? It's not just because of their story or how they speak. It's because they hold themselves up. Because they move with purpose. Because their body, even aged, still shows discipline. And that earns respect. And respect, my friend, is the first step toward desire. Can it be reversed? Absolutely, but not through complaining, not in front of a mirror full of excuses. It's reversed through effort, through the daily decision to move, to eat better, to get up even when it hurts, not for others, for you. Because when you reclaim your body, you reclaim part of your soul. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for someone to ask you. Do it because you know you're slipping, and you don't deserve that. Do it because self-pity will have you in a wheelchair before your time. Do it because if you don't fight for yourself, no one else will, and if you don't act today, tomorrow will be too late. Harsh, yes, but real. If you've made it this far, and you're processing everything we've talked about, then you've understood something fundamental. Your body matters, not for appearances, but for self-respect. But there's another signal that reveals your attractiveness, one that can easily go unnoticed if you're not fully awake. And when you lose it, even if your voice is steady and your posture strong, something inside cracks. Something dims. We're at the 6th point of this video, and it's one of the most revealing. When you speak, some people lower their heads. They don't do it out of shame or fear. They do it because they feel the weight of your presence, because your words aren't empty, because every sentence carries weight, carries history, carries decisions that came at a price. That natural authority isn't bought, learned, or faked. It's earned. And many men have lost it, not because they don't have it, but because they've stopped using it. Picture this. You're at a family gathering. Your kids are there, your grandkids, maybe some friends. There's laughter, offhand comments, empty chatter, and you're there, quiet. Not because you've got nothing to say, but because you've convinced yourself no one listens anymore. Or so you think. But suddenly, a serious topic comes up. Someone throws out a careless remark, and you decide to speak up. You give your opinion firmly. No shouting, no offense, just the strength that comes from having lived. And then it happens. Silence falls, and some people lower their heads, not because you defeated them, but because you made them think. Because they remembered who you are. Because for a moment, they were forced to see you differently. That's real power. That's respect. That's magnetic. But if you shrink yourself, if you speak as if your opinion doesn't matter, if you ask for permission to express yourself, what you're projecting is weakness. And weakness, at this stage of life, comes at a steep price. It makes you irrelevant, turns you into a piece of furniture no one notices, a shadow that's present but doesn't influence. Want to know what happens when a man loses that quiet authority? He becomes the clown, the one everyone talks over, the one no one consults, the one no one believes. And that destroys you from the inside. It kills the soul. You see it in the eyes of many older men, dull, resigned, invisible. And it's not because of age. It's because they surrendered their voice. You're not here to entertain. You're not here to make people laugh. You're here to leave a mark. And every time you speak with truth, with conviction, with calm, you do. Even if no one applauds. Even if they don't say it. Even if they pretend not to notice. Your energy shakes them. And that's worth more than 1,000 nice words. So take a good look at yourself. When was the last time someone lowered their head when you spoke? If you can't remember, it's time to reclaim your place. Because if you don't take yourself seriously, no one else will. Harsh, yes, but absolutely true. If it stung to realize that your voice has lost weight, that your presence no longer commands the space like it used to, it's because something inside you is still alive. Because deep down, you know you weren't born to be ignored. You didn't come into this world to be invisible. That respect you once inspired wasn't a coincidence, it was earned. But there's something deeper, something that's not just about how others see you, but how you see yourself when no one's watching. We've reached the 7th point of this video, and maybe the most important of all. If you're still questioning your worth, it's because you haven't looked at yourself through the eyes of a man. You've spent too many years seeing yourself through borrowed eyes, through the eyes of a father, fulfilling duties, through the eyes of a husband, giving up space, through the eyes of a worker, sacrificing time. But when was the last time you looked at yourself as a man, not the man you used to be, not a defeated man, a man who's still here, breathing, walking, still capable of commanding respect, desire, impact? If you don't see yourself that way, it's because you've accepted the lie that you're no longer worth anything. And that, my friend, is the biggest lie you've ever been sold. Society pushed you to be useful, but it never taught you how to be valuable. And now, after you've given everything, you feel empty, like you have no purpose left, like your existence depends solely on what you can provide. But that's not true. Your worth isn't measured by what you do, it's measured by who you are, by what you represent, by what you project. And that doesn't fade with age, it disappears the moment you give it up. Giving up your identity is the quietest way to die. You wake up, eat, breathe, but you're not really living. You're not excited, you don't recognize yourself, you don't see yourself, you're just surviving. And for a man who has lived, who has fought, who has loved, who has fallen and gotten back up, that is a tragedy you don't deserve. The change doesn't come from doing something grand. It comes from something much harder, learning to see yourself with dignity again, recognizing the man you used to be, and realizing he's still there, under the guilt, under the losses, under the scars. He's alive, he's waiting, but if you don't wake him up, no one else will. There are no excuses, there's no more time, you can't keep living like a memory. Either you reclaim yourself or you lose yourself, and this time, for good. Because what you don't fight for today, you'll regret tomorrow. Your gaze, your presence, your strength, all of it can come back, but you have to choose it. No permission, no fear, no apologies for existing. Look at yourself in the mirror tonight, not with pity, not with shame. Look at yourself as a man, as someone who still has something to offer. And if in that moment you don't see anyone, then start building him from scratch. Because there's no defeat harsher than the one who stops searching for himself, and you're not dead, you're just asleep. It's time to wake up. If you've made it this far, it's not by chance. This video isn't easy to swallow. It's not made to entertain you or fill you with pretty phrases. It's made to make you uncomfortable, to show you what you've been avoiding. And you did it. You stayed until the end. That already sets you apart. Because most people change the subject when something hurts. But you chose to stay and listen. And now there's a decision in front of you. Keep going as you have been, dimmed, resigned, surviving. Or do something, not for others, not for validation, for yourself. Because if you don't rescue yourself, no one's coming to do it for you. No one. I want you to leave me one sentence in the comments, just one. I'm still me. And let me know which country you're watching from. Let the world see there are still men who don't give up, who don't fade away, who refuse to be erased. I'm Celia, and this channel is called House of Wisdom for a reason. We're not here to soften truths or hand out pats on the back. We're here to wake you up, to help you take control, to help you reclaim what others made you believe you'd lost, your dignity, your presence, your worth as a man. Subscribe, not out of obligation, but because this space is for those who are done living half asleep. Share this video with that friend, that brother, that man who needs to hear this before it's too late. It might change his life, or it might save what's left of it. And if this message hit you hard, don't stop here. watch one of the 2 videos that will pop up on the screen, because this conversation isn't over. It's just getting started.